Different titles this time. The hot talk on Kashmir needed a special entrance. No, we aren't going to be talking about the fabric, but the region, which could spell nuclear war. So before we check out what's going on, let's go through the history. It's pretty standard for this part of the subcontinent until recently, and it went a bit like this. It was the final frontier for Alexander the Great's empire in 400-ish BC. The Muslims stormed and influenced the area 1,000 years later. The Mongols came along in the early medieval times. Out of the Islamic and Central Asian Mongolian influences emerged an independent sultanate. Around the late medieval time, the Mughals conquered the area, and then after that, in the 18th century, the Sikhs conquered the area, making the Sikh Empire. And finally, the British conquered it in the 1820s, making the princely state of Jammu and Kashmir part of the British Raj. The princely state was autocratically ruled by Britain, but it still had its indigenous monarchy, albeit powerless, which is a classic empire technique to keep people happy. And it wasn't really reminiscent of the earlier sultanates or indigenous groups. It was a sort of mishmash of the many Muslims, Sikhs and Hindu communities in the area. And that is the seed of the troubles that ensued. More recently, in 1947, after the British left, there was the partition of India, and the Radcliffe Line was drawn across the country on religious grounds, making Pakistan and India. States had the option to join India, which was Hindu, or Pakistan, which was Muslim, or just reject it altogether and do their own thing. But, in all honesty, that third choice wasn't really an option. Kashmir's ruler was Hindu and wanted to join India. The population was majority Muslim and wanted to join Pakistan. But there was a bit of tension here. But luckily both sides were mature and rational as ever, so sat down to talk it through, allowing a peaceful diplomatic transition after Kashmir temporarily went independent. Yeah, that didn't happen. 3 wars ensued through the 20th century, and up until today, there have been hostilities. There were some inklings of peace though, as in 1972, the Simla Agreement was made, where what we know as lines of control were established. These aren't international borders, but rather de facto borders, and really just ceasefire lines. Both ceasefire lines have soldiers along the borders, and even fences have been set up. The line, though, didn't cover the Shakskan Valley. It's basically a giant glaciated area, and isn't hot property by any means. No pun intended. But in the end, it's all to play for. With Pakistan and India both so desperate to get one over each other here, and both having nuclear weapons, this is a hotspot the world needs to be watching. As to what the people think, many people there believe that they should just become independent. Other than that, due to the fact that people are Muslims to a 67% majority in the state, going up to a 97% majority in the actual Kashmiri Valley, it is widely thought they'd choose Pakistan. Despite this, there are significantly large Hindu, Sikh and Buddhist communities there. Equally, India's economy is growing at an amazing rate, and some of the conspicuous international actions of Pakistan, re-IC and China, are coming out. So will the partisan religious divide stand? You'd think it's simple, just hit the place with a good old referendum, because referendums always settle more questions than raised. Why not? First, consider China.
China
China has advanced into Kashmir and agreed, with Pakistan, not India, to have the Aksai Chin, an old 5,000 metre high desert, which is used for trading by the Tibetans and a part of the Karakoram range ceded to them in 1963. The former territory could be very useful in any military advances China want to do, and is the only place where the Chinese and Pakistani military can meet, and any trading they would want to do as part of their international trade, and basically debt trap schemes that are part of the Belt Road Initiative. Given it's flat too, it's also a place that's very important to control, as the Himalayas and Karakoram range form a sort of wall on China's southwestern border, while the Aksai Chin is a potential shortcoming. The latter territory is a potentially valuable place and has lots of water reserves, which could be vital in the future. While China and Pakistan are good buddies and all, China and India definitely aren't. China has turned this from an awful conflict into a geopolitical nightmare. The second reason is terrorism. Lashkar-e-Taiba are Islamic militants in the area who frequently launch terror attacks on the Hindu populations and the Indian side of the ceasefire. They have alleged links with ISI, the Pakistani intelligence service, much like the Taliban, and there are even rumoured links with China. The third reason is a bit more mundane, and it's boring old domestic politics. On the 5th of August 2019, the Indian government under Modi made some changes to the constitution, including the infamous revocation of Article 350. This meant the Jammu and Kashmir state, the Indian side of the ceasefire line, was to come under direct centralised Indian control as opposed to devolved as it was previously, and subsequently Indian migration into the state has been encouraged, perhaps to dilute any Indian Islamic majority. And official diplomatic tensions between the Indian government and Chinese government have been rising. This is a rich region with a rich history, but also very rich tensions. I would say it is the most important geopolitical standoff in the world right now, and could decide whether India or China, two of the world's rapidly growing economies and biggest populations, become global hegemons, and more worryingly, whether India and Pakistan start a nuclear war. Please subscribe below, like the video and click the notification bell. Also, go check us out on our Patreon, Instagram and TikTok, links in the description below. While you're waiting for the next video, go check out our other videos, particularly the South Asia playlist.